So this is my sister Ellen. I'm going to shoot a few videos with her because she has some expertise and some cool experiences. So she is a nurse by profession, but in this video we are going to be a little bit more personal, and we are going to talk about adoption. So Ellen was adopted. So she is my sister, and she was adopted when she was 1 day old. So her adoption story is unique, just like everyone's is unique. It's not everyone's story, but there also are a lot of themes that I think come up, and a lot of people ask me questions. I work with a lot of clients who are adopted, and I also work with families and integrating families and working through issues that come up. So I wanted to do a video with her and just ask her some questions that I haven't prepped her for. And that I also can ask because I'm the sister, right? And I'm not afraid to ask, and we have a really good relationship. So I want to first just kind of get your experience and overall thoughts on adoption and being adopted, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, so I'm adopted. And to me, I mean, I think my overall experience has been really positive, and I've been really lucky to have such a supportive family and everything. I a lot of times forget that I'm adopted. Like, I'll, even just make jokes saying like, oh, that sucks, that's not our genetics or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, it's not in mine, but, and I think another part that's always weird is like people don't know how to talk about adoption, and I think that's weird for me because I don't know why it's a big deal. Like people will say, oh, you're adopted? Oh, I'm so sorry. And like, okay, it's just I don't know what to say about that or anything. But I joke a lot about that genetics, oh, at least I don't have those genetics or whatever. But honestly, it's been one of those things that have been really hard for me. Like Diana said, I was adopted a day old, the day after I was born, and it was really closed adoption at that point. And so I didn't know anything. I didn't know who my birth parents were, didn't know where I came from, nothing. So it was almost like, who am I? I don't know. I mean, I know who I am, but it's just weird because you don't know where your ancestors are from, or, I don't know what pregnancy is going to be like for me, because normally it's like how your birth mom did it, or, or what diseases I'm a carrier for, or, things like that. Things that I think about because I'm a nurse. But that's been a big thing for me, and and it left a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points, because even if it is, it's pretty normal, because for us, you just are adopted, and that's just how it is. So yeah. It was never like an unveiling. Our parents never kept it a secret. It was never an issue in that way. Mm-hmm. So I think, and I think that's a really positive thing. So that was never an issue. One of the things I also really liked about how our family did it, we also have a younger brother who's adopted. So one of the things they also did was they made books of kind of how you came into our family, and it's sort of Ellen's story or Sam's story or our family story. So, and we're also readers. We all love to read. So as a child, we would read the story of this is how Ellen came to our family, or this is how Sam came to our family, and that's sort of a way to introduce it and normalized it a little bit, which I always thought was really cool, because people asked, well, how did she find out, or how do you tell a kid that they're adopted? That's also a question I get from parents, and I think you just never don't tell them. Yeah. It's normal. It's if it's a part of their story, at least if they're little, it just becomes a normal part of their story. And I think that's a good way to handle it. So there was never that question. But there always are other questions. I think the genetic piece has always, been a thing for you, and always been something that you wondered about and were curious about. And it also sort of is a bigger question that is sort of, who am I? Which is that's a much bigger question.
Yeah.
Right? And you know who you are. You're a strong person. You know who you are. But there's questions that you don't know, as far as like, you can't point to this is what my family looks like. And those are some bigger questions. And I think that's maybe a harder piece that's there with adoption.
Well, and I was going to say something about the story thing. Honestly, that I cherished that book. I even took it to college with me. Like I
didn't know that.
Yeah, there wasn't very many personal things I took to college, but I took that because it was just kind of reaffirms that my family recognized who I was, or like where I came from, kind of a thing. Like I was adopted, and they were so happy, and so I love it, and I keep it all the time. And my life is kind of surrounded by adoption. My husband's adopted, and his brothers were adopted. My little brother's adopted. And then just being adopted, you say something and they're like, "Oh yeah, me too," or or they'll say, "Oh, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
It's weird. So, but yeah, like the genetic piece, I'm kind of all over the place. Sorry, but the genetic piece, like Diana was mentioning, I actually, that's been something, that's bothered me for a long time. So I even went back to the adoption agency that I was adopted from, and to see if, sometimes adoptive parents will leave stuff behind or whatever. And if they have, then the kids can pick it up or whatever.
You could maybe trace them if your birth mom said, hey, if she ever contacts, tell her this, or you can tell her my name, or something like that, right?
Or you can like fill out a form and send it into the state, and if she filled out the same form, then they kind of like match things up and whatever. But it's like $30 or something to do that. So I went to the adoption place, and there was nothing there. And at first it kind of hurt, it was like, oh, she's just forgotten about me. She just, like, there's nothing there for me. And my coping mechanism is like, I'll just brush it off. It isn't a big deal, whatever, And,
it's a very positive, it's fine.
It's all right. But honestly,
But
if I'm being real, Diana wanted me to be more real, so I'm trying. But it honestly, it kind of hurt, just that almost like she forgot about me, doesn't care about me. Those irrational thoughts kind of come to your head.
But I don't even think they're irrational. I think it's normal. How can you not feel that way, right? Especially if you're reaching out for something and you're like, oh, and there's got to be a hope that when you're doing that there might be something there. And then those thoughts will come like, oh, well, maybe she's been looking for me, or maybe she put this in for me. And when that's not there, how can that not be a letdown, right? That's not there. And then those thoughts come, which irrational in the fact that it's probably not true that she doesn't care about you and she forgot about you. That's not true. How can that's not true. But how can you not go there? I think it's normal to go there.
Yeah, and I totally went there. This is actually the first time I've ever admitted going there. This is the first time you've ever heard it, huh? Just because, especially now that I've dealt with it, when you're in the moment, it's kind of harder to be honest, but now that I've kind of dealt with it. But the more I've thought about it, and I'm really religious still, praying about it and, things like that, the more I realize that I am super grateful for that birth mom and the strength she had to, give me up and, put me in a better home. And, I'm just so incredibly grateful for that. And I realized that, obviously since she didn't put it out there that that we should meet, or, and I don't know, I could have gone further, but I kind of decided to stop and just say, I'm really grateful for the family I have, and I'm not sure if I want to bring her into my life at this point, because I feel like when I really think about it, it would really complicate things for me, because I wouldn't know where to place her, because she's not really my mom, but so it's kind of complicated because I have so much respect for her and I don't even know her, but I don't know how to place her in my life, so I don't really want to involve her in my life at this point, and yeah.
And those are all really good thoughts. And I think the way you even say it is obviously a process. You've processed it, because if you've processed something, you've moved through it enough to be able to understand the other person's perspective and be like, I get it. If you haven't processed it, it's more of the questions and the why and the maybe anger or sadness or whatever it is. There's more of that there. But I think that's still there, probably even more than you're saying.
Yeah.
But you've processed it enough to overall be like, I get it. I'm thankful. I have respect, for her, and I'm grateful for her. So that's, you've definitely processed through a lot of that. What was it?
Can I
go ahead,
to that?
please.
I think where it really hit me, where I wanted to find out more about who I am, was when I turned 18 and went off to college. And that's kind of when more people are kind of searching for, who they are and where they're going and, everything like that. And so at this time, I remember even Diana, I went over to her house and my mom knew some stuff, like that the adoption agency had just told her and things like that. So we knew that she played basketball for this university. So we looked up this university and, and tried to look through pictures, and there was no definitive things, because we kind of had an idea of how tall she was and, things like that. And so we looked through stuff and
searching a little bit blindly, just to, a clues, but not knowing for sure.
Yeah, and it was kind of at this point, it was after I'd gone to the adoption agency and kind of felt that little sting, that I just wanted to know what she looked like. I'm like, I don't want to meet her. I just want to know what she looks like. I want to see if I look like her, things like that. Yeah. And so we searched and really didn't see anything. And for a while there, I was like, well, let's look again, or, but we never really did. And I think it was just because I knew that, the only way to really find out who she is, or to put a face with the name, would be to really contact her. And I really don't feel like I'm ready for that. And I've had friends that have done it, and they kind of have told me that they regretted it at first, and just because it was so overwhelming, because not only the birth mom reached out, it was the grandparents, it was the whole family, and all of a sudden all these people are like, oh, we love you, all this stuff, and she's like, I have no idea who you people are, and you want me to come visit, and all this stuff. But afterwards, she's like, okay, I fit them into a box, basically, kind of compartmentalize my life, and it's okay, But I don't know, maybe one day I'll get to that point, but honestly, I don't think I'm too much of a people pleaser to be able to handle having another set of parents to be like, oh, you want me to come visit? Oh, dang it.
Yeah, which is that's a good point. In thinking about how you would fit another family into your life, or, also not knowing what that looks like, or what her life would look like, you don't know what you'd be getting. But yeah, with your personality, it would be probably adding more complication, because you can't please everyone already.
Yeah.
So let's just add more people that I can't please, and you can't.
No.
But I think that's interesting to kind of have to think about that too, because what would life look like? How would that look? Would that complicate holidays? It's all kinds of things.
But I have to share my kids one day.
Yeah, it's complicated. and this is more your story, but I think also, you know, thinking about it from our mom's perspective, I thought about that too. I mean, that would be really hard for mom, and that wouldn't be on you, and that shouldn't really influence your decision. But I think if we're looking at it also from sort of an adoptive mom's perspective, I think that's also a fear. Is they're like, well, what if she, leaves me for her birth mom? And that's, I mean, that's a whole other complication and a whole other layer of questions. And I mean, none of this is simple, right?
No. Well, and honestly, I mean, again, Diana told me to be honest. I love my mom. She's been incredible throughout this whole process. I think things that were hard for me is when I was really young, I didn't really know how to describe, because again, I knew I was adopted from the beginning, and I didn't really know how to describe that I was adopted, or who my birth mom was. I would call her my real mom. And I remember mom really setting things straight. Like, she'd be like, Elle, we are your family, and she's like, and I'm like, I know, but my real mom, my mom that actually, gave birth to me and whatever. And I think that was really hard for her, but again, it was completely innocent. But when I was that young and I would say that and I could tell it kind of hurt her, it kind of made me want to close off a little bit and not talk to her about my adoptions or my feelings or my adoption. And, close off like how I was actually feeling about things and whatever. I didn't feel like I could really talk to her. And again, that's my personality. I didn't want to offend her.
You didn't want to do anything that would make her feel anything.
Well, I didn't want her to feel like she wasn't my mom, because she is my mom. Like, again, I forget that I'm adopted all the time. She treats me just like Diana. So, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where if you're adopted, like, you just gotta, I don't know, just embrace who you are. Just embrace that you're gonna always have questions. Embrace that you may never know that family, and you've got to learn to be okay with that, and embrace that the family that's taken you in did it for a reason, and they did it because they, again, I'm very religious, felt that it was really right for them, and that this is where, for me, I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. And, again, being surrounded by adoption, my husband, he was adopted at like 3 months old or something, has a pretty similar adoption story, always knew he was adopted. He doesn't have as many questions as I do. He thinks of more like, the things like where I came from, genetics, same thing, but he doesn't really question things as much. But and then his brothers were actually came out of foster care, and they were 9 and 11, and Logan was the oldest, and so he really took them under their wing, and he was also adopted. So just I think having someone, Logan, for his brothers, it was a really big heart of them to just be able to have someone that they could look up to and to help them through that. And so finding someone that you can have similar circumstances with helps a lot too. So.
Yeah, and I was thinking that as well as you're talking. I think finding an ally, or someone who you can be totally open with. Maybe that's not your parents, maybe that's not your siblings, maybe it is. But finding someone who you can be totally open and honest with and share those harder feelings, I think, is important. And I think, you did that a little bit with me, I think, too, as we were deciding how to reach out to your birth mom,
Yeah.
if you were going to, how to tell mom.
It was the
All of-
only person I could talk to because I wasn't going to tell mom that because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. So.
But I think it's important that you have somebody that you can talk to about those things, because these questions are normal and natural, and maybe they'll offend someone, maybe they won't, but that doesn't mean that they're not there, and you should address them and talk to them. So, maybe that's siblings, maybe that's friends, maybe that's, people you meet later in life. There's also like adoption groups and that kind of thing. But people that you can just be really honest with and talk through those feelings with, I think is really important, and figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
I think you also hit something important that is a piece of it is having to sort of live with unknowns. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for everybody. I mean, it's hard for people, I think, that have personalities like you too, because you don't really like unknowns and you don't really like to not have things planned and
I need answers. I have to have answers.
So that's hard.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's already a hard thing, because you have to sort of sit with a certain level of unknown and maybe always having that unknown. And that's hard. That's scary.
Well, and I think Diana touched, that's not my personality to be able to be like, well, I don't know what's going on. Okay, I'm cool with it. Whatever. No, I'm like, okay, figure out everything possible that you can. And honestly, I did do that. I did the 23andMe thing, and I just got my results back, and it felt so good. Like, I was so happy because, see, it even makes me emotional a little bit. But it's just cool because I kind of felt like it fit a little piece of who I am, because, I found out where I came from, where my ancestry was, and then, also did, found out that I wasn't a carrier for any diseases. Allah. Super excited about that. But, just like little pieces that I had always questioned sitting in nursing school, being like, they would say even stuff like, well, go home and ask your mom how her pregnancy went, or go home and ask your family if this is in your this disease is in your family. And I'm like, well, I can't do that, And so it's just really cool to have that and just kind of give some answers. And it's given me enough to feel satisfied. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, as far as what does she look like, what kind of person is she, what does her family look like, those questions, I'm still not sure I really want answered, but they're still questions.
They'll
still kind of drive me nuts, but
yeah. Well, yeah, and this is new. So Ellen's been asking these genetic questions for a long time. I think they're also the safer questions for you, because if someone says, "Oh, what bothers you most about adoption?" you can say, "Oh, well, it's genetics," and that's true. But I also think it's the safer answer. Yeah. But it definitely is true. But this 23andMe, it's the genetic testing. She just did that like last week. Mm-hmm. So we just barely got those results last week. So this is really fresh too. So this is the first time she's actually getting those answers, which is really exciting, because for as long as your whole life, you've kind of been asking those questions, and we just got the answers. And I don't even have, I'm sort of the bystander in this, but her telling me that she got the results back, I was so excited.
She was so sweet.
And I was trying to be patient and wait for her to come over and tell me, but I was really anxious and excited because this is a big deal for her, and these are her finally getting these questions answered. So this is kind of exciting for us to be able to get these answers for the first time to these nagging questions, and at least, like you said, have a little bit bigger piece of the puzzle. You know, you don't have it all, but you have a little bit bigger piece. Mm-hmm. And I think, you don't know how life will play out ever. We never know. You never know how you're going to feel and what you're going to want and need and choose. But right now, this is where you're at.
It's good enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think I love that my family's supportive in this, and that everyone was so excited to hear, what my results were, and things like that. And even, my husband even bought the kit for me for my birthday, so he knew what a big deal it was to me, and now he's thinking he's gonna do it so that we can kind of compare and everything. And so I just think that's so important, and And when people ask me, well, what's it like to be adopted? Can I even ask you that? Is that okay? I honestly, again, it's my personality. I just say, I'm just grateful to have my family, and I'm grateful that I was adopted because it's kind of shaped who I am. And I don't know where I'd be without it. I wouldn't know Diana. I wouldn't know my husband. That just makes you want to cry, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
I know. So I just think it's just the coolest thing. And I think it's so cool that this exists, because when people go to adopt a baby, I don't think they really realize what they're doing,
Yeah, and the extent of it, and how big of an impact it will have on everyone, right, including the child, and I mean everything. And I think that's another reason that I wanted to shoot this video, is it's a taboo topic, and I don't think it should be.
I don't understand why.
And I understand people's hesitation maybe to ask, because you never want to ask something that will upset someone.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it was a really hard story and they asked you about it, that would be hard, and that could trigger something. So I mean, maybe that's some of the hesitation. But I also think that it's a beautiful thing, and it shouldn't be secretive. And we want to talk about it, and I also want people to be able to ask questions, and get answers for what they can, or at least be able to ask the questions and have them out there, or be like, this is hard for me, or this is what I'm wondering about, or, I just think those are really important to be able to put out there. So
yeah, I totally agree with you. I think talking about it helps a lot more, because if people don't ask you about it or act like you shouldn't talk about it, it makes me feel like I should be ashamed of being adopted. And I don't want to feel that way, and I don't feel that way. I've from the very beginning, I would tell everybody that I was adopted. It wasn't like weird to me, and I wasn't like scared to say so because I thought I wouldn't have friends. I think, obviously there's probably some really hard adoption stories out there, and, I would love to hear them and, see what it's like for other people, because honestly, I've never felt that, and so I want to know where these comments are coming from, where people are saying, things like that. So if you do have a hard adoption story, I'm really sorry that it's been so hard for you, but I really think that talking about it and finding someone that you can lean on, like Diana, I lean on Diana all the time, and it just like helps you get through it, and not get through it, that's a bad way to word it, but help you to process everything.
Just get support on it, and tell your story. I think telling your story is so important, and for everything, for so many different topics, and especially the pain that we go through, being able to tell our story and own it and sort of integrate it into who we are. Even if it's a really hard piece, it's a piece that makes us who we are, and we can sort of develop that and accept it. And then, write the end of the story, which is always my thing, right? If you don't own your story, then you can't write the ending, because you haven't accepted, the beginning. And you also are the author of your own story. You know how I can go off on just stupid quotes like that, but I like that, and I think it's important to own your story and who you are. And like you said, if people act like it's a bad thing to be adopted or a secretive thing, then it kind of makes you feel shameful for who you are, and that shouldn't be the case. That it's a part of your story, and whether it's hard or whether it's good or whether it's there's always questions, even if it's positive. It's a part of who you are. I think it's important to talk about. And I'm really thankful that I have had the experience with Ellen and with Sam and with having such a cool adoptive story and family, because now that I work with primarily people who don't. So most of the work that I do now is really hard adoption stories. Either really difficult, kids with really difficult upbringings or issues. and it's all really, really, really hard. And my view of adoption is so positive and so good that I think I'm able to sort of kind of find this in between the two. And if I didn't have you, and I didn't have, you know, such a positive experience with it, I don't know where my thoughts would be on adoption, because I wouldn't have had a personal experience with it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely thankful for that, because I feel like it's evened me out a little bit in all of this, because I hear so many hard things all day, so many hard things, and so much trauma and so much pain, that I think that could taint my experience with adoption if I didn't have such, you know, a good experience with it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of my thoughts on
Yeah, I agree. I'm just happy to talk about it and raise awareness, because adoption deserves to be talked about.
it. Yeah. And I think it's good to talk about. I think we could plug that there too. So I have on my website, I have an Ask Diana sort of open question, and I haven't asked you if this is okay, but I'm gonna volunteer if you have a question for Ellen to submit that too, because she could also answer any questions.
I'd be happy to.
See, so willing.
Yeah.
But if you have any questions,
cool.
or if you have any questions, or any feedback that you want on any of this or any of that, submit any questions and we can answer those too. I think sometimes if you don't have people that you can ask directly, you can always ask questions anonymously, and we can support you or answer anything that you have.
That's a nice feature, I think, because it's really hard to just come out and ask directly, especially if it's always been hard for you to do that or you don't have anybody. Mm-hmm. So if it's something that's going to help you be able to get to that point where you can find someone you can lean on or be able to talk about it, then that's huge. So I would love to. Aw. That's great.
So we are here. If you have any questions, you have any comments, feel free to comment, in this video, or submit an anonymous question, and we're happy to answer. But yeah, that was just sort of our thoughts on adoption, sort of your story.
Adoption.
The Ellen story. So yeah, thank you for answering those. Thank you for being vulnerable. I know you don't.
Not
love doing
easy.
that.
Not
She
easy,
doesn't love-
especially in front of a camera. So.
But you did really well, and I appreciate you
you.
sharing.
Appreciate it.
So thank you.
Love you.
Love you.